Hello everybody, this is Justin of Justin and Max Games. Max is, well, doing other things. Today I'm going to be doing my review slash rant about Cerebria. Cerebria is a game that my wife bought a couple of weeks ago, and so I learned the rules, which wasn't easy, but there's an official video to kind of introduce you to the game. I would do the video and then read the rules, and then we were able to learn it. We've played it about 10 times now, and I'm going to say straight off, this is going to be a rant video, but a rant about one aspect of the game. There's been a lot of reviews of this game, and out of 10 I would give it probably an 8.5 or maybe even a 9. So I definitely think, yes, it's a great game. It's a very cool game. It's great at 2. I've never played it at 3 or 4, or I think it could play up to 6 with the expansion, but I wanted to really criticize it on one aspect, and that aspect is getting familiar with the game because of iconography. Now, I've brought out some other games that I want to compare in terms of becoming familiar with the game. Now, I think that's one of the big things in games is you get all these icons and you're thinking, oh, how am I going to learn all of this? And some of them become intuitive after 1 or 2 games. First of all, underwater cities. They get it right. On their cards, there are the icons on the top, but at the very bottom, in just a simple sentence, it reminds you what that means. Done. The icons actually in underwater cities aren't that complicated, but there's enough sometimes, just a little bit of a question, that if you read the sentence, it makes it go way faster in terms of thought. Well, what do I want to do? I'll use this card because that's its function. You don't even have to really even worry about the icons in a larger sense. Underwater cities, got it right. Guilds of London. Now that's one that's also received a lot of criticism for its iconography, but there are so many cards in the game. It's a huge stack of cards, and a lot of them do the same thing or very close to the same thing. So it's mostly almost like reading hieroglyphics. If you have a chart of basically what everything means, you can kind of read from left to right what that card does. It's still sort of a pain in the neck, and sometimes you still have a question, and someone on Board Game Geek had made sort of a one-page list of what every card does in a sentence, and it's on a printable sheet, and actually the cards are numbered like 1 to 99 or whatever it is, and it's very helpful. I definitely say print it out, but still it's not unintuitive, but it takes 2 or 3 games to really get used to it. Now I'm fine with Guilds of London. I don't find the iconography difficult. They do it right, almost. Bomarzo. Not one of the most popular games, but I don't think I've done a review of this game, but it is a wonderfully interesting game. The instructions are not the clearest, but the one thing similar, the reason why I bring out this game, is that cards are upgradable. And that's a big aspect of Cerebria's cards. You could upgrade them, or empower them, as they use the term in Cerebria. So how does Bomarzo make that easy for a player? On the front side of the card, they tell you at the very bottom, if you upgrade it, what does it upgrade to? Now, in this game, you just flip the card over, but that's not possible in Cerebria because it has to be a hidden hand. But nonetheless, the idea that you have something on the face and then just a hint at the bottom of the card, and these are small cards, by the way, these aren't large cards, they get it right totally. You see what the card is? You know if you want to play it in the first place because you already know what to upgrade to and make it a better card. Now we get back to Cerebria. Again, I rate this game a 9 in terms of its ingeniousness, all the little subtleties of the game, and there are a ton of rules, but it's okay. You get into all of those subtleties once you really involve in all the ways of eking out little bits. Now, similar to Tricarion, Tricarion has sort of a base way of playing and then the full game. And they say to do the same thing in Cerebria, where you play a base version of the game and then the full version of the game. Skip it entirely. I think that's you don't even get a taste of the game without the full game going in either of them. The problem of this game is that even after 10 plays, we are still struggling with looking at the book. What does this mean? What does that mean? I mean, usually I know generally, but in a game with such little subtleties, it has to be clear. What does Cerebria get wrong in terms of its graphic design? Now, it's not language dependent, or language independent, however you would say it, because the cards already have, in our edition, English words on it. Empathy, terror, loneliness, whatever it is. So it's not like you can't have a little thing, printed on the card. The cards, though, the iconography is sometimes inscrutable. The first 2, 3, 4 times you're constantly looking in a book. Now, what do? They give you a book. They actually give you 2 books. One for the orange team, the bliss team, and one team, the blue team, the gloom team. Now, let me tell you, there are so many terms in this game, and yes, they're all thematic and make sense. Essence and willpower and intentions and fragments and realms and frontiers and all this. It's a lot of things to remember, and often it says willpower, but for us it's this little purple gems, so we just call them gems. And then you have essence, which basically are little dots, so I just say dot. But that's neither here nor there. It's the iconography that really gets my ire. Because, okay, so you do have a book, and it tells you what the iconography means. Now, in the official video of how to play this game, it says, well, have your cards in, or at least the upgrade cards, in alphabetical order so they're easy to find. They're not alphabetical order in here. They're by suits, which is fine, because that's what I did it. But even within the suits, they're not in alphabetical order. And then when you read it, all right, so already you're not so sure about the iconography. And in fact, I'll show you. There's actually 2 cards with the same iconography for gloom, and they mean different things. These things just drive me crazy. And some of the icons, there are no 2 cards in this game that do the same thing. So having all of these complex icons that try to kind of transcribe what it is that the intention is. Here's the other thing. Okay, so there's a blue book, there's an orange book for the 2 teams. But let's say I'm a blue team and then the orange team puts out a card. I don't know what it is. Or I'm thinking, well, I think that I know what that is. Can you tell me what that card does? And then later on in the game, if I want to remember to kind of figure out a strategy, I gotta ask the player, can I see your orange book? Because I gotta see what or just. Then often during turns, my wife and I have been playing this, and we're sitting across the table, and we're just kind of staring at the book, looking down. What did you do? I'm trying to figure out what my card does. After 10 plays, and we're not the smartest maybe people in the world, but we love these kind of games, and it could have been made so much easier. Plus, now there's these more annoying things. All right, the cards are big in the first place. So there's a big picture of a googly guy. That's cool, but there's so much waste of space. They could have had 1 sentence. When the card comes in, this is what happens. And then maybe a little block in the corner. When you upgrade the card, what it becomes. Because sometimes you have a card in your hand. Oh, do I want to put it out on the board somewhere? Well, I got to know what it upgrades to. How can I find that? Now I got to go in the book. And how do I find that out? Well, it's not even, that one does this. And then you're even into that, so you're in the midst of this heavy game thinking about all these things. And then you actually have to read, it doesn't even say immediately what the card does. It first gives you sort of like color blurbs, this emotion makes your opponents want to stand around and stare. That could have been up in the corner, like in italics, so that you could read that if you want to, and just get right to what does this thing do. That just drives me crazy. I'm telling you why this game drives me crazy, but at the same time, I'm going to tell you that I love this game, and I give it a very high rating, and I do think that you want this game. Also, inconsistencies in the rulebook. Now, the rules, if you do read them front to back, they do make sense. But again, when trying to reference things, because as with a lot of Mind Clash games, once you get used to the game, you could do different powers for the players, the B side of the boards, and whether or not they have different things that they could do. Again, more icons that you have to think about. Well, what do these things do? So you look in the book. Well, how can I figure out what my character does? What is their special ability? Well, I look in the book, and there it is. There's their special ability. Well, how are they listed? Are they listed all the blue team ones, and then all of the orange team ones, or the gloom and the bliss? No, it alternates because the emotions that that contrast with one another, they want to tell you like how they're, I guess, malice and empathy, anxiety and harmony, and it's not clearly delineated. So you're still okay. Now what's my thing gonna do? So that's the power. Okay, so you think that's the way they're gonna do it? They're gonna do it this alternate way. Well, let's try to find what the asymmetric spirit boards do. Do they also do it alternatively in the same order that they just did it? No. Now they do it by teams. So now love and delight and empathy and all of theirs. And sometimes they give you a picture and sometimes they just give you a blurb. These are the kinds of things that drive a person crazy because the game is so cool and there's so many subtleties, but it gets dragged down that I'm tired of just sort of playing and having to think about just what it is that are my possibilities or what the other. Now I'm sure by game 20, 25, I'm going to look at a card and go, I know what that is. And I know that these two cards, they might do something different now, but they do. Do you really want to play something by 20 games in? It's really hot out here. By 20 games in and still have to figure out what something does. Now, as you can see, we love this game so much that I've already primed the characters, the spirits, in order to paint them, or at least my wife said she wants to paint them. So, in a game like this, please, designers, consider that you might have played this game 200, 300, 1,000 times, but think of it from the perspective of someone that loves heavy games, loves these crunchy, cool games, and don't want to spend eternity learning what it is. I hope none of that detracts you from wanting to buy this game because it really is very cool. One thing I would recommend, it's not in the rules, and again, the full game includes intentions. I would play it with intentions immediately because otherwise I think the game kind of lags in interest. The intentions, you have to keep track of intentions to get points on your turn because the first intention that you score, you get 1 point, which might get you something on the scoreboard because the scoreboard had bonuses. And then the second thing you accomplish, you'll get 2 points. So you could actually get a lot of points on one turn, not by accomplishing the bonuses or accomplishing the objectives, but just doing the normal stuff if you can get all of that stuff going, or at least 2 or 3 of the things going. What I recommend is cover them up, because you can't get points for doing the same thing twice on a turn, and you might be somewhere into the turn, and you say, okay, I quelled you already, right? Now if I quelled you, then that was 1 point. Now I'm going to be completing a row. That'll get me 2 points. Did I already quell you this turn, or was that last turn? That kind of stuff. So I would just take markers. There's a lot of markers in the game. Just cover them up as you do them, and that makes the game a lot faster, I think, or a lot easier to think about what it is that you want to accomplish. Now, why do I give this game ultimately an 8.5 and not a 9 or a 10? It's the level of randomness that's in the game. Sure, I love games with randomness that change things up at the moment. A game like Edge of Darkness with the tower. You could plan so much, but people can, the tower can undo you. In a game with this much forethought and planning and strategy, the idea that, and you could see what the accomplishments, what the objectives are that are coming up are, but the game could be so swingy in terms of your private objectives. You might turn over a card and, I already have that. I already can just score that right now. I don't have to worry about anything, and let me just try to absorb so I can empty out an area so I can trigger that right now. Or you might, pick up 1, 2, 3 in a row, and you could see, well, it's going to be impossible for me to do any of these, and I don't even know which way to go forward with it. So, and that element really, I don't know, it just kind of bothers me a little bit that in a game with this much strategic thought that has to go into it, and you build your own deck, and you know what kind of cards you have, and different cards might come up at different times, and that's cool because that also builds to the tactical aspect of it. But it could be really punishing if 2 turns in a row the other person or the other team has cards that they could already score easily just because of happenstance, and you are kind of stuck. So in the end, do I think Cerebria belongs on your shelf? Yep. Is it a pain in the neck? Yep. Is it worth it? I think so. I'm still hoping that after maybe another 10 plays, it really becomes just straight up fun, which right now there still is a little bit of that struggle that you have with a first or second time with a heavy game, and that you hope by the third or fourth time is gone and you could just have a good time. And this one just takes a lot longer, but it didn't have to be. So that's my rating for Cerebria, 8.5.